In the quiet village of Eldralis, nestled between rolling hills and ancient forests, there lived a half-elf named Eryndor Alarion. By day, he toiled over dusty scrolls, deciphering forgotten languages in his small cottage by the river's edge. By night, he gazed at the stars, their light faintly reflected in his silver hair. His life was one of solitude, yet it suited him well, for he had always preferred the company of books to people. But even the most tranquil lives may be upended by fate, as Eryndor soon discovered when an unusual storm swept through the valley. Beneath its driving rain, he ventured into the woods, drawn inexplicably toward an old oak tree whose roots twisted like gnarled fingers. There, buried deep within the earth, he found a shard of crystal glowing softly with an inner fire. The artifact seemed alive, pulsing faintly as if responding to his touch. That evening, dreams unlike any he had known before assailed him, visions of battles fought long ago and lands shrouded in shadow. A voice whispered words that echoed in his mind. The time draws near. When dawn broke, Eryndor awoke shaken, but resolved to uncover the truth. Before he could act, however, disaster struck. A band of marauders descended upon Eldralis, their cries filling the air with terror. Flames leapt from rooftops as villagers fled in panic. Clutching the shard tightly, Eryndor slipped into the chaos unnoticed, using his knowledge of hidden paths to escape into the forest. As twilight fell, he paused to rest beneath the canopy of towering pines. The scent of pine needles mingled with the damp earth, grounding him despite the turmoil around him. It was then that Lyra appeared, her bow drawn and arrow nocked, her green eyes sharp as blades. She introduced herself cautiously, explaining she tracked the marauders who had destroyed her family years prior. Though wary, they agreed to travel together, each recognizing the other's strength might prove useful. Together, they crossed meadows carpeted with wildflowers and forded streams where sunlight danced on the water's surface. Yet danger lurked everywhere in the form of predators stalking silently through the underbrush or sudden squalls that drenched them to the bone. Eryndor often stopped to examine the crystal, its surface etched with runes that shimmered faintly under moonlight. He labored to translate them, piecing together fragments of a prophecy foretelling both ruin and salvation. Meanwhile, Lyra shared tales of her homeland, her voice softening as she spoke of happier times. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, though neither voiced what lay beneath their camaraderie. One night, seated beside a campfire, they discussed their plans. They knew they could not face whatever dangers awaited alone. Allies would be needed if they were to succeed. With this realization came resolve and apprehension. Beyond the safety of the forest stretched vast plains dotted with villages and towns, leading eventually to the bustling city of Varnath. Upon arrival, they encountered Kael, a battle-hardened warrior clad in tarnished armor, nursing wounds from recent skirmishes. His gruff exterior hid a heart burdened by guilt, seeking redemption through action. Mira, a healer with keen intuition, joined them shortly after, her gentle demeanor masking profound wisdom gained through years of divination. Lastly, Thalor, a dwarven smith eager to unlock the secrets of the crystal, completed their fellowship. As introductions gave way to discussion, tensions flared briefly, fueled by differing priorities and temperaments. Yet unity prevailed, forged in the crucible of shared purpose. News of a dark force amassing in the north reached them during these early days. Whispers spoke of Umbroth, a creature born of shadows, bent on reclaiming the crystal to unleash devastation across the land. This revelation cast a pall over their meetings, prompting urgent debate about how best to proceed. Despite lingering doubts, they decided to venture into the Shadow Peaks, guided by visions imparted to Mira during moments of trance-like clarity. These mountains loomed ominous against the horizon, their peaks perpetually cloaked in mist. As they ascended, the air grew colder, and whispers of ancient sorrows filled the wind. Each step brought new challenges. Avalanches threatening to bury them whole, narrow ledges requiring steady nerves to traverse, and creatures born of darkness emerging from fissures in the rock. At one point, illusions assailed them, conjuring phantoms of loved ones lost or futures never realized. Through sheer willpower, they resisted, emerging battered but unbroken. Along the way, Eryndor wrestled privately with self-doubt, questioning whether he possessed the leadership qualities required to guide such a diverse group. Lyra noticed his struggles and offered reassurance, reminding him of his unique gifts and unwavering dedication to justice. Her words bolstered his spirits, though the weight of responsibility remained heavy upon his shoulders. At last, they arrived at the Temple of Luminaries, carved into the very heart of the mountain range. Its entrance yawned wide, framed by columns worn smooth by centuries of weather. Inside, light and shadow intertwined in patterns that defied comprehension, creating an atmosphere both awe-inspiring and unsettling. Here they confronted Umbroth, a being whose presence radiated malice so potent it chilled the marrow of their bones. The battle that ensued tested every ounce of their courage and skill. Spells clashed with steel, arrows sang through the air, and the crystal itself flared brilliantly, illuminating the chamber with blinding intensity. In the end, victory came at great cost. One of their companions fell, their sacrifice sealing the fate of Umbroth forevermore. With the threat neutralized, the group emerged from the temple transformed. The crystal now pulsed steadily, its power tempered yet undiminished. Returning to Varnath, they parted ways reluctantly, knowing their lives had been irrevocably altered. For Eryndor, the journey had revealed depths of resilience and wisdom he scarcely imagined possible. He vowed to continue studying the crystal, ensuring its secrets remained safeguarded for future generations. As he stood once more beneath the starlit sky, he felt a sense of peace, not complacency, but acceptance that whatever trials lay ahead, he would face them with steadfast determination. Thus ended the first chapter of their tale, leaving behind echoes of triumph and sorrow alike. The forest thickened as Eryndor and Lyra pressed onward, their footsteps muffled by the soft carpet of fallen leaves. Shadows stretched long across the dappled glades, where shafts of sunlight pierced through the canopy like golden spears. Each rustle of underbrush or distant call of birds heightened their alertness, for they knew not what dangers lurked within these ancient woods. The shard nestled securely in a pouch at Eryndor's side, its faint glow reassuring yet enigmatic. He paused occasionally to study it, tracing the runes etched upon its surface with reverent fingers. Their meaning eluded him still, but fragments of the prophecy whispered in his dreams began to coalesce into patterns. Lyra, ever vigilant, scanned the horizon with practiced ease. Her bow remained strung, an extension of her arm as she moved silently through the trees. "Do you sense anything?" she asked once, her voice barely above a whisper. Eryndor shook his head, though he too felt the prickling sensation of unseen eyes upon them. They skirted a grove of gnarled oaks whose twisted branches seemed almost alive, reaching out to ensnare unwary travelers. A chill ran down his spine as they passed, and he quickened his pace, drawing comfort from Lyra's steady presence beside him. Their journey took them through meadows ablaze with wildflowers, their colors vibrant against the verdant grasses. Here the air carried the sweet scent of blossoms, mingling with the earthy aroma of damp soil after recent rains. Yet even here, danger was never far. A sudden movement caught Lyra's keen gaze. A wolfish creature emerged from the brush, its fur mottled with patches of shadow that shifted unnaturally. Without hesitation, she nocked an arrow, her aim true and unerring. The beast snarled, lunging forward with unnatural speed, only to falter mid-leap as the arrow struck home. It dissolved into wisps of darkness, leaving behind only a faint trace of sulfur in the air. Eryndor marveled at her skill, his admiration growing with each passing moment. Yet he could not shake the feeling that greater perils awaited them beyond the confines of the forest. As dusk settled over the land, painting the sky in hues of amber and crimson, they sought refuge beneath the shelter of a rocky outcrop. There they shared a meager meal, their conversation turning to the mysteries of the shard. "It feels alive," Eryndor murmured, holding it up to the dim light. Its glow intensified briefly before fading again, as if responding to his touch. Lyra nodded thoughtfully, her expression pensive. "Perhaps it chooses whom it reveals itself to," she suggested, though her words carried more questions than answers. That night, dreams came once more to trouble Eryndor's rest. Visions of towering spires and sprawling cities filled his mind, their beauty marred by encroaching shadows. Figures moved among the ruins, some cloaked in light, others wreathed in darkness, and their voices called to him, urging him toward a destiny he could scarcely comprehend. When dawn broke, he awoke with a start, his heart pounding. Lyra stirred beside him, her own slumber disturbed by some unnamed force. Together they rose and continued their trek, driven by necessity and a growing sense of urgency. By midday, they reached the edge of the forest, where rolling plains stretched endlessly before them. Villages dotted the landscape, their rooftops rising like clusters of mushrooms amidst fields of golden grain. Smoke curled lazily from chimneys, carried on gentle breezes that bore the scent of cooking fires. Despite the apparent tranquility, both travelers sensed a tension underlying the scene. Rumors of marauders had spread far and wide, and many villagers fled at the sight of strangers approaching. Undeterred, Eryndor and Lyra ventured cautiously into the nearest settlement, seeking information about the forces gathering in the north. There, they encountered tales of wolf families torn apart, homes razed to ashes, and lands laid waste by relentless warfare. Yet amid the despair, whispers of hope persisted. Some spoke of a crystal of immense power, capable of turning the tide against the encroaching darkness. Others dismissed such talk as mere superstition, clinging instead to prayers for deliverance. Eryndor listened intently, piecing together fragments of truth from the myriad accounts. His resolve strengthened with each story, for he knew now that the shard in his possession held the key to salvation or doom. With Lyra at his side, he prepared to face whatever lay ahead, aware that their path would lead them inexorably toward the heart of the storm. The city of Varnath loomed ahead, its towering spires visible even from afar. Cobbled streets wound through bustling markets, where merchants hawked their wares with fervent cries, the air thick with the mingling scents of spices and roasted meats. Eryndor and Lyra navigated the crowded thoroughfares cautiously, drawing curious glances from passers-by who noted the shard's faint glow beneath Eryndor's cloak. Their quest for allies led them to the tavern known as the Iron Tankard, a place frequented by warriors and wanderers alike. Inside, dim lantern light cast long shadows across weathered wooden tables, and laughter mingled with the clinking of mugs. Kyle sat alone in a corner, his massive frame hunched over a tankard of ale. His armor bore the scars of countless battles, each dent telling a story of survival against overwhelming odds. When approached, he regarded them with wary eyes, his grizzled beard twitching as he spoke. "What brings you here?" he rumbled, his voice gravelly but not unkind. Eryndor explained their mission briefly, showing him the shard. Kael's expression darkened. "I've seen that kind of power before," he growled. It nearly destroyed me. Mira joined them shortly thereafter, her presence serene yet commanding. She carried herself with an air of quiet authority, her silver hair braided intricately down her back. Her hands bore calluses from years of tending wounds, and her gaze held wisdom beyond her years. Upon touching the shard, she gasped, her eyes widening as visions flooded her mind. "This artifact holds great peril," she warned, her voice soft but urgent. "Yet it may also be our salvation." Thalor arrived last, his stout figure draped in leather aprons and tools clinking at his belt. A dwarven smith by trade, he examined the shard with keen interest, muttering about metallurgy and enchantments. As introductions concluded, tensions simmered beneath polite exchanges. Kyle bristled at Mira's divinations, dismissing them as superstition. Thalor argued passionately about unlocking the crystal's secrets through science rather than mysticism. Yet amidst the discord, unity began to form. They shared tales of loss and redemption, finding common ground in their desire to thwart the rising darkness. News of Umbroth reached them via travelers' accounts, shadow spreading like a stain across northern lands, corrupting all it touched. Debate followed regarding their course of action. Some favored immediate confrontation, others advocated preparation. Mira interjected, recounting a vision of the Shadow Peaks, where ancient runes etched into stone would guide them further. Reluctantly, they agreed to journey thither. Preparations commenced swiftly, weapons sharpened, supplies gathered, and plans laid. As night fell, they convened once more, this time around a roaring hearth fire. Conversation turned introspective, each member reflecting on what brought them to this point. Eryndor listened intently, his heart swelling with gratitude for these unlikely companions. Before parting for rest, Lyra pulled Eryndor aside, her emerald eyes locked onto his, searching for something unspoken. "You carry the weight of this burden," she said gently. "But remember, we stand together." Her words bolstered his resolve, though unease lingered within him. The road ahead promised trials far greater than any faced thus far. Still, he drew strength from those assembled, knowing their combined might could overcome even the darkest foes. With dawn approaching, they readied themselves for departure, aware that every step forward brought them closer to destiny's crucible. Thus ended their stay in Varnath, leaving behind only echoes of newfound camaraderie and shared purpose. The path into the Shadow Peaks ascended steeply, its jagged rocks biting cruelly into their boots as they climbed. Wind howled through the passes, carrying with it a chill that seeped into their bones despite their heavy cloaks. Here the air grew thin and harsh, each breath a labor against the altitude's unyielding grip. The companions pressed on, driven by necessity rather than comfort, their footing steady but measured. Eryndor led the way, the shard pulsing faintly in response to some unseen force, its glow illuminating patches of ice clinging stubbornly to the stone. Mira walked beside him, her staff tapping rhythmically against the ground as she muttered incantations under her breath. "The runes grow clearer," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the wind. "They speak of trials ahead, tests of spirit, resolve, and unity." Her words carried weight, though none dared ask for specifics. Kyle brought up the rear, his broad shoulders shielding the group from the worst of the gusts. He grumbled occasionally, more out of habit than discontent, his loyalty unwavering even in such desolate surroundings. Thalor paused frequently, his keen eyes scanning the cliffs for veins of ore or peculiar formations. "This place is old," he remarked one evening, hammering lightly at a rock face with a small chisel. "Older than any dwarf-kin tale I've heard. There are secrets here, buried deep within these stones." Lyra, ever vigilant, kept watch from higher vantage points, her bow always ready. She spotted movement, one sea shadow flitting between boulders far below, and nocked an arrow instinctively, though the figure vanished before she could lose her shot. Illusions began to plague them as they ventured deeper into the peaks. One night, Eryndor dreamed of standing before a mirror, reflecting not his own face, but that of a stranger's cold, calculating, devoid of mercy. Startled awake, he found himself alone in a hollow surrounded by ghostly figures, whispering his name. Only Lyra's sharp call broke the spell, her voice cutting through the haze like sunlight piercing fog. "It's just your mind playing tricks," she assured him later, though her expression betrayed unease. Still, they pressed onward, determined to unravel the mysteries shrouding their journey. A trial awaited them near the Samita narrow bridge, suspended precariously across a yawning chasm. Its wooden planks groaned beneath their weight, swaying violently with every step. Kael tested its sturdiness first, his bulk nearly snapping several boards. "Not built for giants," he quipped grimly, though his hands trembled slightly as he crossed. Mira followed, her balance impeccable despite the treacherous footing. Thalor moved with surprising agility, muttering about engineering flaws and substandard craftsmanship. Last came Eryndor and Lyra, their hearts pounding in tandem as they reached the other side. Beyond the bridge lay a cavern whose entrance glimmered faintly with phosphorescent moss. Inside, the air was thick with moisture, droplets cascading from stalactites above. Runes carved into the walls shimmered faintly, their meanings obscured yet tantalizingly close. Eryndor traced them carefully, his fingers brushing ancient dust as he whispered translations aloud. "Guardians, keys." Light and shadow entwined. His voice trailed off as the chamber trembled suddenly, a low rumble emanating from deep within the earth. From the shadows emerged creatures unlike any they had faced before, tall, gaunt beings with eyes like burning coals. They moved with eerie grace, their forms shifting unnaturally. Kyle drew his sword without hesitation, its blade gleaming dully in the dim light. "Hold fast!" he roared, charging forward. Behind him, Thalor brandished a mace forged from enchanted metal, its surface crackling with energy. Mira raised her staff, weaving spells that conjured barriers of light to protect her allies. Lyra loosed arrows with deadly precision, each shot finding its mark. Eryndor stood at the center, the shard blazing brightly in his hand. Its power surged outward, driving back the creature's advances. For long moments, the battle raged, a cacophony of steel clashing, spells exploding, and arrows singing through the air. When silence finally fell, the cavern lay still, save for the heavy breathing of the survivors. One creature remained, pinned beneath Kale's blade, its form writhing in agony. "Who thanked you?" Eryndor demanded, his voice steady despite the exhaustion etched into his features. The creature hissed, its voice a guttural rasp. "Umbroth claims all. You cannot stop what has begun." With a final cry, it dissolved into darkness, leaving behind only a lingering sense of dread. The group regrouped quickly, their faces pale but resolute. Though battered, they knew the true ordeal lay ahead, waiting patiently in the heart of the mountain. Resting briefly, they fortified themselves with meager rations and shared quiet words of encouragement. Eryndor gazed at the shard, now glowing steadily, its light casting intricate patterns upon the cavern walls. He felt a strange kinship with it, as if its essence resonated with something deep within him. Lyra noticed his introspection and placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We'll face whatever comes next together," she said firmly. Her confidence bolstered his spirits, though the road ahead promised challenges far greater than any they had yet encountered. As dawn broke beyond the peaks, they prepared to descend further into the depths, aware that destiny awaited them in the Temple of Luminaris. The Temple of Luminaris loomed before them, its entrance flanked by statues of ancient warriors whose eyes glowed faintly with an inner light. The air within was heavy, charged with a palpable tension that seemed to press upon their very souls. Eryndor stepped forward cautiously, the shard in his hand pulsing more brightly as they ventured deeper into the chamber. Shadows danced along the walls, taking on grotesque forms that whispered of forgotten horrors. "Stay close," Kyle rumbled, his sword drawn and ready for whatever might emerge from the darkness. At the heart of the temple stood an altar, its surface etched with runes identical to those adorning the shard. As Eryndor approached, the crystal flared brilliantly, illuminating the room with a radiant glow. From the shadows emerged Umbroth, his form towering and menacing, wreathed in tendrils of black smoke. His eyes burned like embers, fixed hungrily upon the artifact. "You dare defy me?" he growled, his voice echoing through the chamber. The ground trembled beneath their feet as he advanced, each step shaking the foundations of the temple. Kyle charged without hesitation, his blade slicing through the air with practiced precision. Umbroth countered effortlessly, his movements fluid yet impossibly fast. Sparks flew as steel met shadow, the clash reverberating through the chamber. Mira raised her staff, weaving spells that conjured walls of light to shield her companions. Thalor hurled enchanted stones at the creature, each impact sending shockwaves rippling outward. Lyra knocked arrow after arrow, her aim unerring despite the chaos surrounding them. Eryndor focused intently on the shard, feeling its power coursing through him like a living thing. Words of ancient power formed on his lips, their cadence smooth and rhythmic. The crystal responded, its glow intensifying until it bathed the entire room in blinding radiance. Umbroth recoiled, his form writhing as if burned by the light. "Foolish mortal," he snarled, his voice laced with fury. "You cannot hope to contain me!" With a final surge of energy, Eryndor channeled the shard's essence into a single devastating spell. A beam of pure light erupted from the crystal, striking Umbroth squarely in the chest. The creature screamed, his form dissolving into wisps of shadow that were quickly consumed by the brilliance. When the light faded, silence reigned once more. The altar lay undisturbed, the shard resting atop it, its glow now steady and serene. Exhausted but victorious, the companions gathered around, their faces reflecting both relief and sorrow. One among them, however, did not rise. Kyle knelt beside the fallen warrior, his massive frame trembling with grief. Tears streamed down his weathered cheeks as he cradled the lifeless body of Thalor, who had sacrificed himself to ensure the spell's success. "He gave everything," Kyle murmured, his voice sick with emotion. The others bowed their heads in solemn tribute, their hearts heavy with loss. Even the shard seemed to dim slightly, as though acknowledging the cost of their triumph. As dawn broke outside the temple, the group prepared to leave, their steps slow and measured. The weight of what they had accomplished and what they had lost hung heavily upon them. Eryndor retrieved the shard, now tempered by the battle, its power balanced yet immense. He felt a profound connection to it, understanding at last its true nature and purpose. Outside, the world awaited, unchanged, yet forever altered by their deeds. They walked together toward the horizon, their bond strengthened by shared trials and sacrifices. Lyra fell into step beside Eryndor, her expression thoughtful. "We've faced darkness greater than most could imagine," she said softly, "but there is still much to do." He nodded, his gaze fixed upon the rising sun. Though weary, he felt a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that the shard's secrets remained far from fully uncovered. Their journey had only just begun, and the road ahead promised challenges far beyond anything they had yet encountered. Yet together they would face whatever came next, driven by courage, friendship, and an unwavering belief in the power of light to vanquish even the deepest shadows. The journey back to Varnath proved both somber and reflective, the companions walking in silence save for the occasional murmur of shared remembrance. Thalor's sacrifice weighed heavily upon them, a shadow cast over their victory that no light could fully dispel. Eryndor carried the shard with newfound reverence, its glow now steady and muted, as though acknowledging the cost of its awakening. The plains stretched endlessly beneath a sky painted in hues of amber and gold, the warmth of the sun offering little solace against the chill within their hearts. Upon reaching the city gates, they were met by familiar faces merchants, who had heard whispers of their exploits, villagers whose eyes shone with gratitude and awe. Yet there was also an undercurrent of sorrow, for not all returned whole from such quests. Kyle bore his grief stoically, his broad shoulders squared despite the weight pressing down upon him. Mira offered words of comfort where she could, her voice soft but resolute, reminding them that even in loss there lay seeds of hope. Eryndor sought solitude amidst the bustling streets, finding refuge in the quiet sanctuary of a library tucked away in one of Varnath's older districts. There, surrounded by shelves laden with dusty tomes and scrolls, he delved deeper into the mysteries of the shard. Its runes shifted subtly under his scrutiny, revealing fragments of knowledge hidden for ages. He learned of its creation, a collaboration between ancient elves and dwarves, forged during a time when light and shadow walked hand in hand, and of its intended purpose, to safeguard the balance between these forces. Meanwhile, Lyra explored the outskirts of the city, speaking with those who had suffered under Umbroth's influence. Her keen ears gathered tales of lands scarred but resilient, communities rebuilding despite lingering fear. She returned each evening to share what she had learned, her optimism tempered by pragmatism. "We cannot rest yet," she declared one night, her voice firm. "Though Umbroth is gone, his corruption remains, festering like a wound left untreated." Kael resumed training at the city's armory, honing his skills with renewed vigor. His blade sang through the air as he practiced forms passed down through generations, each movement a tribute to Thalor's memory. Though his heart ached, he found solace in action, knowing that strength would be needed should darkness rise again. Mira continued her divinations, poring over maps and charts, seeking signs of further unrest. Her visions grew clearer with each passing day, pointing toward regions where shadows lingered longest. As weeks turned to months, the group convened regularly, their discussions shifting from immediate concerns to long-term strategies. They debated whether to disperse or remain united, ultimately deciding that flexibility would serve them best. Eryndor volunteered to stay in Varnath, using the resources of the library to unlock more of the shard's secrets. Lyra pledged to travel among the villages, acting as a liaison between the people and their cause. Kael vowed to fortify key settlements, ensuring they could withstand future threats. Mira committed herself to uncovering the origins of Umbroth's power, hoping to prevent another such entity from rising. Their parting was bittersweet, filled with promises to reunite when circumstances demanded. Eryndor watched as his companions departed, their figures growing smaller against the horizon until they vanished entirely. Alone once more, he returned to his studies, driven by a sense of duty that transcended personal desires. The shard pulsed faintly in response to his touch, its connection to him deepening with every revelation. One evening, as twilight bathed the library in soft hues, Eryndor uncovered a passage buried within an ancient text. It spoke of a second artifact, a counterpart to the shard, said to reside in the ruins of a forgotten kingdom beyond the eastern reaches. Intrigued, he committed the details to memory, knowing this discovery might alter their course once more. When next they met, he resolved to share this information, aware that their journey was far from complete. For now, however, he focused on the task before him, piecing together fragments of history and lore. The shard remained his constant companion, its glow a beacon of hope in the face of uncertainty. Though weary, he felt a profound sense of purpose, understanding that the battles fought thus far were but prologue to a greater struggle. With determination etched into his features, he prepared for whatever challenges lay ahead, confident that light would always find a way to prevail. Thus ended this chapter of their tale, leaving behind echoes of triumph, sorrow, and enduring resolve.